I just had a fascinating conversation with one of my business partners, and he asked me a question I've actually been fielding a lot lately from other entrepreneurs, and that is, how do you control for bad hires? How do you control for, or how do you deal with situations where you've onboarded someone, recruited someone, hired someone, whatever language you want to use, and the bottom line is they don't want to do the work, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line. They're not engaged. They're not interested. You realize right away that it's just not going to be, the relationship's just not going to work. And he asked me, how do I deal with that? And for me, it's interesting, right? Because I have multiple businesses that I operate. And one of those businesses is a direct selling business, right? Some people call it network marketing, call it what you want. But anyway, direct selling business, that's how our view to it, because that's what we do. We take our product and services directly to the market. So it's a direct selling business. But in any respect, what I share with them is, first and foremost, if you are having a challenge with someone that you have recently onboarded or recently introduced to your business or hired on as a business owner, I told them the first thing you need to do is take accountability for it yourself. You have to start with you. And I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this. I know this might be uncomfortable, a tough pill to swallow. But at the end of the day, you have to be unabashedly accountable. You have to ask yourself first and foremost, did I do everything I was supposed to do to give that person the optimal opportunity to have success? Did I make the ground so fertile that when people look at our business or look at my business or look at our organization, whatever it is you're doing or leading, that the real question is, how did that person not make it, right? And if you can't answer that question, then it starts with you, right? Did you do everything you were supposed to do to make the ground fertile? Did you make sure that the person had a track to run on? Did you make sure that the person was aware of what your expectations were? Did you make sure that they actually had a path to follow, like directions, right? One of the biggest mistakes that particularly successful entrepreneurs make, and one of the biggest mistakes that people who are highly successful in corporate America, professionals who've done really well, is that because we've acquired this specific skill set, right? And corporate America, that's how it works, right? You go to school, make good grades, go out and get a good job, distinguish yourself, right? Refine yourself, specialize so you can climb the ladder, make yourself indispensable. But the bottom line is, not everyone that you onboard is going to have your skill set. Not everyone's going to have your talent. Not everyone's going to be able to do things exactly the way you do it, how you do it. You have to do things that duplicate. And you have to provide systems, and you have to create an environment where the right KPIs, the right metrics, the right behaviors can be duplicated easily by individuals who may not come from your background or maybe not necessarily cut from the same cloth all the time, whether it be academically, professionally, or otherwise. And so individuals will hire people and anticipate and expect that they already have certain skills, that they already have a certain working knowledge, or that they already understand the way, but you haven't really articulated the way. The way isn't written down anywhere, right? You don't have an employee handbook. I mean, seriously, you don't have a reference point where people can understand the values and the purpose of the business, who the target market is, who your ideal client is. You don't have information set up where the person can understand from the time that client picks the phone or walks in through the door, to the time that the service or product is delivered, to the time the person has acquired the service or product. And if you're mailing or, you're sending something where it has to be transported, to even after they've experienced the product and service. If these things are not written out in detail, right? It's a false expectation to believe that you are setting up an employee, a staff person, or a business partner for success. So you got to ask yourself those things, right? Are you exhibiting on a consistent basis the attitudes and the behaviors and the modus operandi that you would like to see modeled? Because the bottom line is, this isn't corporate America. Typically, when you're first starting as an entrepreneur or small business owner, you're building the culture, you're building the trust, you're building the integrity. And when I say integrity, it's not always moral integrity. I'm talking about integrity to your movements, right? Where people can see consistency. If you are on 10 about your business, it's a false expectation to believe that someone is not the owner of your business to be on 10 like you are. They're going to be on 9. If you're showing up on 8, they're going to be on 6. If you're showing up on 5, they're going to be on 2. You see what I'm saying? So the first thing you have to do is you have to own these things. Like whether or not you're showing up prepared, whether or not you're showing up and you have a plan and you have an agenda and you have an itinerary. And not only do you have that itinerary or plan, but you have also put it in their hands in a way that can be digested, whether it be digitally, whether on paper, whatever the case may be. You got to give them a track to run on, right? So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing that I would share is this, right? Let's assume that you're showing up the way you're supposed to show up. Well, as I indicated before, for me, it's very rare that I onboard someone. It's very rare that I take on someone and begin to pour myself into them, whether directly or indirectly, without vetting them and without making sure certain things are in place. Number one, I need to make sure that a person gets it, right? And when I say gets it, I mean, do they understand the value, the mission, the purpose beyond just earning a buck, right? And have I provided them with something, whether it be a video, whether it be a talk, whether it be a mission statement, vision statement, whether it be a list of principles. I know personally in my organizations, I have something called an uplifting service agreement. Look, it is, I acquired the ideal from reading a book by Kaufman, I believe one of John C. Maxwell's proteges, where the book is called literally Uplifting Service. And one of the chapters in the book shared a strategy that I adopted, where when I onboard someone, there is an uplifting service agreement that you have to read it. You have to understand, we're going to talk about it. And you have to sign it, right? And it really just kind of lays down the rules of the playground. This is how we get down. This is what our mission is, what our purpose is. We're about changing people's lives. This is how we're about changing their lives. This is the impact we're trying to make, right? We don't measure ourselves based on ourselves alone. We measure ourselves on whether or not what we are sharing with the world is actually helping people level up and changing their lives. That's intrinsic to our mission, right? You got to have those things. If your thing is client services, offering the best client services, if your thing is offering the best dining experience, if your thing is offering the best workout experience, or if part of what you do as an artist or creative or a dancer or a gymnast is to give people a sense of nirvana, and if your goal is to be sunshine, right? The people you onboard, the people that you take on, before they even get to first base, you got to have that conversation with them. And if you're not having those conversations with them, number one, the onus is on you because you didn't have that conversation. But then if they're not willing to acquiesce, if they're not willing to adopt, if they don't share these values, you shouldn't be onboarding them, right? So it works both ways. Sometimes you have individuals who get it, but they don't want it. They don't want to be accountable to it. They don't want to do the work, right? Part of your responsibility, though, first, like accountability first, is to say, look, these are what you should be doing day one. This is what your progress should look like 15 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever timeline you want to set, right? I'm not being myopic here, but you should have some type of expectations laid out. Certain trainings that need to transpire by a certain amount of time, certain skills. If they don't have the skills, there's certain skills that can be developed, right? Where are you at in the process of developing these skills or these learnings to be successful? The only place where you find success for training is in the dictionary, right? So, does the person get it? Do they want to be accountable to it? Do they want to show up prepared and ready? Do they want to show up on time or early or leave late? I mean, do they want it? Right? Do they want to scale the company and do what's necessary in terms of becoming better leaders, becoming more proficient? Do they see, if this falls on your responsibility again, do they see the company you're building or the space that you're building or the environment they're building as a means for them to level up themselves, right? To professionally and personally develop themselves? Do they want it? So, are they willing to make the extra phone calls? Are they willing to knock on the extra doors? Are they willing to send the extra email or reach out to people's social media or follow their dollar or be creative, or just perform whatever task, solve problems, right? If you're hiring people to solve certain types of problems, are they willing to participate in a way where they help to identify problems and they're involved in the solving of those problems and providing solutions, right? Do they want it? Do they want it for themselves personally within your business, in the environment? And do they want to have a participatory role? Do they want to make a real, tangible, significant contribution to the bottom line? Once again, but you have to lay down the track, right? So you don't assume that they want it because they talked a good game. Because we've all been fooled before, right? We know people pad and fake their resumes. We know in this world of social media, folks can pretend to be more successful than they are or pretend to be a lot of different things, right? And look, I believe in faith in it till you make it, so don't get it twisted. Even as a business owner, we are also always in the process, if we want it, we're all always in the process of asking ourselves, what type of leader do I have to become? What type of person do I have to become to achieve the big, hairy, audacious goals I may have 3, 5, 10 years from now? We're always in that process. So once again, it's exhibiting that too as well, right? So it cuts both ways. So if you're having problems keeping the right people around you, ask yourself, once again, have you laid these things down? Is there a track for them to run on in terms of expectations? And, particularly when you're talking about sales organizations, have the metrics been spelled out, right? In terms of how many people they're presenting to, when they present, how effective are their closing ratios? How effective are they at acquiring referrals or getting repeat business or upselling? Recruiting, which I'll come back to this in a moment, and onboarding individuals is not oftentimes a function of things that you think they are. If you're having a difficult time recruiting or finding good people, look, people who are good at selling cars typically like cars. People who are good at selling insurance or marketing investment advising products are typically people who believe in insurance and investment advising products. People who love real estate and believe in real estate are typically going to be the individuals who are good at real estate. If you own a barbershop and you want to find people who could be really good staff persons or employees there, contribute to the bottom line, they're typically people who enjoy the barbershop experience, right? Think about it for a moment. So oftentimes a measurement or a good way to kind of ascertain whether or not the person's a good fit is, are they already passionate about the nature of work that you're doing already, right? That's something you want to be cognizant of. And once again, how are you showing up? How are you showing up? So that's another piece you want to kind of take into account, right? To make sure that you're onboarding the right individuals and you have some type of system in place where it's not subjective, where it's not based on how they feel or how you feel, but at the end of the day, these are deliverables. These are what our expectations are. So you have to have defined for them who the core or ideal client is. Expectations in terms of treatment and service, quality control. These things have to be spelled out. You cannot assume anything, right? And they have to be communicated frequently and often. They need to be made available. They need to be at the fingertips of everyone. Even the person that may be sweeping the floors or washing the windows or doing the most minute of tasks, they must be aware of it, right? All hands on deck. You're only as strong as your weakest link. That's the attitude you have to have. Okay, so the other thing that I shared with them was, look, the person has to have the skills to pay the bills. Now, look, there are going to be individuals that you give them a little bit of leeway to learn the skills. But at the same time, they need to have at least some basic subset of skills. You can't make exceptions on this. They have to have the capacity to do the work, or at least the willingness and the want to level up and get there, they're not there, and get there quick. They got to be hungry. They got to want it. And if that is missing and you aren't engaging them on a regular basis, or the individuals who are responsible for engaging them aren't making sure that's transpiring and making sure that things are in place to ensure that they are developing into the person or developing the capacity that you need for them to have to be successful. If they're not books of the month, if there's not suggested content, materials, exercises, activities, if there's not mentorship or a situation where someone isn't being assigned to grab them by the hand and say, look, let me show you the way, let me teach you the tools, not let me just tell you, but let me show you what's required, right? If those things aren't in place, you got to take inventory of your situation, but you also do those things so you can take inventory of the person, right? And that's how you make sure that you are not onboarding the wrong individuals. That's how you address these types of challenges. The other thing that I would share and really wrapping up here is this. So I had a conversation with a prospect who ended up becoming a client. And I basically did what I usually do: positive attitude, passionate about the work that we do, because I'm passionate about everything that I do. Because everything that I do, at the core of it, it's about helping another person via Zoom or belly to belly, eyeball to eyeball, or over the phone. I want to see people level up. I believe a rising tide lifts all ships. I bring that energy every single time. I believe entrepreneurship is empowerment. Everything I do revolves around that: helping people make the transition or leveling up. You sick and tired of last hire, first fire, become the entrepreneur. You don't like being in environments where people disrespect you. You're tired of being the A student working for the C student. Entrepreneurship. You want to have influence in your neighborhood. You want to have influence in your community, right? You want to be able to change how people who are charged with the responsibility of providing a certain environment, you want to be able to influence them. Entrepreneurs, when we're successful and influential, we have a way of shaping and curating the environment around us. People bend to our resources, will, and influence, right? So I believe that. And that's the energy I brought. In terms of the presentation I was giving and how I believed our services helped to facilitate that. And quite frankly, I was not thinking about recruiting that person. I didn't have it in my mind to recruit that person. I wasn't trying to recruit them. After they made a decision to sort themselves in and to acquire the service, as I began to kind of, quite frankly, wrap things up, I pretty much heard the person say, look, you seem like you're excited about what you're doing. Okay, I am. Thank you. I accept that. You seem like you're doing pretty well financially. I do okay. Hey, thanks. I accept that. You don't want to run around looking like spam, giving the impression like, you're about, you're spam. So I was like, yeah, I accept. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. So it looks like you're really actually making an impact in people's lives. I mean, I can see how this can help me from the examples you've given, the testimonies you've given. Obviously, other people are being benefited by what you do. He said, can I participate? What's the moral of the story, right? Oftentimes, look, you're going to attract and repel certain people too. Be aware of that. That's why you, as the business owner, as the leader, as the entrepreneur who is perhaps building the culture, building the situation, you have to exemplify the things that you want. Or look, we all start somewhere. You need to be well on your way in your journey to becoming the type of person you want to attract as well. Because game recognizes game. Positive people can't be around negative people. It just doesn't work. Like, you go to a party, you see people crushing on the dance floor, getting in, breaking a sweat. Moment hit the floor, it's beeline. They're dancing, they're getting it in. You have people make a beeline to the wall. They don't mix. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to attract the things that you're becoming or the things that you are as well. So if you're intent, you're enthusiastic, you're passionate about the thing it is that you do, you're going to attract people who are about that. If you're a negative person, if you're bringing that drama, you're bringing that ruck, you're disruptive, and that's your modus operandi, you're going to attract that, because only people who want to tolerate that are going to be those type of people. Folks who are motivated by stature, credibility, respect, integrity. Game recognizes game. We can smell these things on people. We smell it on each other. You're going to attract those things. And also, look, be okay with repelling. Some of us as entrepreneurs, part of the reason how we mess up when it comes to onboarding talent individuals, we're trying to love on everybody, right? And look, you got to be okay with repelling certain things. I don't want to attract negative people. I don't want to attract people who are not consistent. I don't want to attract people who don't have work ethic or fire, because at the end of the day, you make time to do the things you really want to do. And oftentimes it's not a matter of you being tired. Sometimes you're just not motivated, right? You're working a job 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 5 to 9, whatever the case may be. You come home, you're tired. You only have just enough energy to put something in your mouth, get up and go back to work and hit instant repeat. You're not just tired. You're not motivated. That should motivate you to do something different, even if it's just 30 minutes a day, right? I want to attract people who have that mindset, right? So be okay with repelling people who don't, right? Some of you are looking for love in all the wrong places. So I have friends that I can't work, and it's okay. They just don't have those characters. We can be friends. We can be cool. We can chat, talk. Sometimes we can't even do that though. But understand that's also part of the deal too. That's all part of the process. So once again, number one, ask yourself, are you doing the things that are required to attract? And are you giving people the best or most opportune circumstances to excel? So you got to have things clearly defined. What's your purpose? What's your value? So you can resonate, so you can vibrate and find people who vibrate along those lines, right? Whatever your principles and values are. Are you laying down a track for people to run on? Do they know what the expectations are? Do they know how they are being rated in terms of performance? Is it objective? Is it accessible? Right? Can they put their hands on it and literally track themselves? Right? So yeah, do you have non-circumvents, non-competes? Do you have independent contractor agreements? Do you have employee handbooks, or even a small little employee manual? Something to let them know there's cement there, right? Do you have reminders, digital or otherwise, where they're constantly being reminded of what the expectations, goals, and values are, and what the end result, what the end game is? Are you having meetings on a weekly basis to solve problems, where you can also identify whether or not people want to step up and solve the problem, whether they want it, right? Whether they want to contribute and help solve some solutions, so you're not the bottleneck and every issue or conflict that arises ended up on your doorstep. Look, as an entrepreneur, the only issues you, as a leader in your business, or as an entrepreneur leading an organization or leader of an organization, the only things that should really end up on your doorstep are the things that by experience only you can solve. By your unique talents, capabilities, and skills only you can solve. Maybe it's a relationship. It's a relationship dynamic that requires that you address it. In other words, I heard it said like this: if you are a doctor and you're running a clinic and you're the only MD in the clinic, the only issues you should be having to deal with is MD issues. All the other issues, your employees, your staff should be handling that, right? You should only be dealing with MD issues. But are you laying the track, expectations, and equipping your employees, equipping the individuals whom you've onboarded, and giving them the agency, and once again, giving them a sense of direction in terms of what they should be doing? And then are you making sure that you are not setting people up for failure? That you are making sure that people have the skills to pay the bills, at least the rudimentary basic things that are absolutely required, and making it plain what those things are. So even if if you're inclined to make a small exception and give the person some track to run on, to learn what they need to learn and acquire skills and skill, okay, you give them that. Especially if they're showing initiative and hunger, if they get it and they want it, and you can see that they're making progress. But once again, you gotta have the metrics, you gotta have these things spelled out, right? And then last but not least, once again, are you attracting? Are you making sure that you are attracting the people that you want to work with, and that you want to partner with, and that you want working within your organization, right? These things are what's necessary. And that's why I just don't run into that issue that much personally, because, if you don't hit those parameters, if it's, GWC, right? What book is that? I think it was Traction. Yeah. GWC. So if you don't get it, want it, you don't have the skills to pay the bills or the capacity, or the capabilities to do it, I'm gonna sniff that out right away. And you should too. Right. And once again, to my best of my ability, I come up short like everyone else, but to exhibit those values, to exhibit those principles, to embody the things that you want to have around you, right? And if you're doing these things, number one, you're just not going to have that issue, at least not frequently. You'll get fooled sometimes, but not all the time. And when the issue does arise, it will sort itself out, right? Because the metrics, expectations, values, and everything are defined. Sometimes people will show themselves a door, right? But it's going to be incumbent upon you to make sure that you have the backbone to make sure people are aware of these things and have the conversations when they need to be had. And the people that work with you, there should be a culture of accountability where people who you work with are also willing and able and sometimes given the space to have those conversations too, right? So hopefully that's of benefit. And after doing a 5 a.m. to, I think, what time is it? My goodness, what time is it? 10:42. I'm out.